As we return to our exciting series of live webinars this fall, CGLR continues to focus on exploring how the big bets are working. These are the approaches and strategies that we see as making more than the usual increments of change, which are enabling educators and their community partners to move the needle for children in economically challenged, fragile, and marginalized families, and continue to focus on the opportunity and learning gaps that are unfortunately persisting. Many of you know that we have long lifted up and advanced summer learning as one of these essential strategies. Well before the pandemic, it was clear from a wealth of data that children from economically challenged families begin to fall behind during the summer months when they may not have access to summer learning and engagement opportunities. This has been called the summer slide for years, and since the school closures necessitated by the pandemic, it became even more urgent to make the most of learning during the summer months to ensure students can return to school ready for successful learning and that the gap in learning progress can be addressed. Significant federal funding in support of summer learning recognized and responded to this urgency, which has also been bolstered by national and local philanthropy, leading to many successful new and expanded programs that are reaching many more children. Summer Boost is one example of these programs. Since 2022, Bloomberg Philanthropies has supported the launch and expansion of this program, which has been operating in 7 U.S. cities. A recently released evaluation of the program documented significant gains in math and English language arts and academic recovery across demographics and education levels. Similarly, many other programs have emerged under the leadership of school systems, community-based organizations, and public libraries, with a commitment to engaging pre-K through second grade students during the summer to ensure they enter elementary school ready for success. This focus on the youngest learners is of particular interest to the Campaign for grade level reading as we continue to explore how we can ensure that kindergarten can be the sturdy bridge it needs to be for early elementary school success. It is tricky to engage these 4, 5, and 6-year-olds in learning during the summer months, yet many skilled educators have figured out how to do it by engaging parents and families and using other unique learning strategies. So we are super excited to have an incredible panel today who will be able to share more about both Summer Boost and its impacts and other effective summer learning programs that are effectively leading young learners to success in the early grades. We are confident that you will walk away with immediately usable tips and strategies to bolster your own summer learning programming and partnerships, even if summer 2025 feels very far away, because as the National Summer Learning Association says, summer starts in September, meaning you got to start planning now. So speaking of the National Summer Learning Association, or NSLA as it's known, which is the authority on summer learning, we are very lucky to have one of their leaders joining us today to moderate our in-depth discussion. Natalia Soul is an expert in partnership development and relationship management and has over 20 years of experience and a winning track record with over $10 million raised for leading nonprofits and higher education institutions. As a proud mother of 2 young girls and a Latina, Natalia is passionate about helping underserved youth and closing the opportunity gap. And now I'm honored to welcome and briefly introduce our esteemed panelists with us today in alphabetical order. And please note that full bios are linked in the chat, and we'll link them again. So I'm just previewing who we have with us today. Dr. Jeffrey Borman is the Alice Wiley Snell Professor at Mary Lou Felton Teachers College within Arizona State University. Dr. Borman previously served on the faculties of Johns Hopkins University and the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Dr. Borman's main substantive research interests revolve around the social distribution of the outcomes of schooling and the ways in which policies and practices can help address and overcome educational inequality. Caitlin Hannon is a partner at Building Impact Partners, where she finds joy in helping her clients tackle impossible problems, take bold risks, and jump into action. A deeply committed pragmatist, Caitlin believes that we all have the power to make change happen if we get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Caitlin is a serial entrepreneur, having spent nearly 20 years launching initiatives, organizations, and campaigns. Kelly Marshall is a senior vice president of schools with the Mind Trust in Indianapolis, where she leads the execution of school incubation, school support, and talent strategies that support the growth and ongoing success of high-quality schools for Indianapolis students. Dr. Liz Obera Peter-Martel, I hope I'm saying that right, has worked in the areas of special education and school family community connections for the past 24 years. She has been the community school coordinator and then the director of community schools with Patterson Park Public Charter School and Bluebird Education Network in Baltimore since 2006. In that role, she creates partnerships to educate and support the local community. April Porter is Waterford's Senior Director of Strategic Community Engagement, where she directs strategies to build national partnerships with organizations that support families and early learners. April has worked over the past 25 years as a social sector connector, change agent, and driver of impact. Prior to joining Waterford, April was Associate Vice President of Education at United Way of Summit and Medina. And lastly, Jackie Taslim is the current co-president of Lavinia Group and an accomplished education leader with a track record of leading and managing teams to ambitious goals and designing innovative solutions and products for schools in the areas of curriculum, summer school programming, and professional development. Jackie was previously a managing director at Success Academy, one of the highest performing and highest growth charter networks in the country. Welcome to all of you. We look forward to engaging and learning from you. And now I'm excited to turn it over to Natalia to get our conversation going. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emily. Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm excited to be here on behalf of National Summer Learning Association and to be among our incredible panel of leaders in the education space and coming at it from so many different perspectives to help us lift up what's working and highlight what the big bets are, how the big bets are paying off. I'd like to say that NSLA is uniquely positioned to be at the intersection of so much cross-collaboration and partnerships in the space. And we're very fortunate to be able to call so many of you partners. And we look forward to continuing working with you to expand how we include more and more groups in this collaboration. Before I forget, you're in for a treat. We're about to hear from a lot of wonderful leaders in this space, but I'd like to invite you all, if you're liking to continue this conversation in the fall, join us in person in Washington, D.C., November 11th through the 13th for National Summer Learning's National Summit. And you'll see all these familiar faces. So with no further ado, I'd like to start with Caitlin. And Caitlin, there you go. Caitlin Hannon from Building Impact Partners. Really just zooming out at the 10,000-foot level. Let's talk about, and I know you were there from the inception. Let's talk about Summer Boost, how it started, why it started, and give us a little bit about how it's been implemented and scaled across many markets.
Sure. Thanks for having me today. I'm happy to be here. So Building Impact Partners is a philanthropic advising firm. So we work, all of our work is with funders. And we have a long-standing relationship with Bloomberg. But I think to share the origin story, and you'll hear a little bit more from Kelly Marshall later, it's really important to go back to the summer of 2021 when I was working with the Mind Trust in Indianapolis to design the Indy Summer Learning Labs, which came out of the learning labs they created during the pandemic for kids who, whose parents were going to be out of the house, who couldn't sort of have someone there doing virtual learning. The Mind Trust had an idea to sort of implement, the pods that many of us were talking about at the time across community organizations. They were in churches, and they saw this momentum of having kids out in the community working in a, not in a school, but on academic work outside of school. And they came to us wanting to figure out how to make that happen in the summer. And so we ran a pilot program in the summer of 2021 in Indianapolis and learned a lot. And you'll hear more from Kelly about that later. And then Bloomberg said to us at the start of 2022, we want to do something about COVID. What should we be thinking about doing? And we said, well, there was a program in Indianapolis last summer that we helped support that, included all the kind of key components, and Jeffrey will speak to this, of high quality summer learning, right? So it's a certain dosage of number of days, number of hours of instruction, high quality curriculum. We made sure that it was we had an easy off the shelf sort of curricular option for schools that needed to make this happen when they were already trying to do so many other things. We knew that attracting the best teachers in the summer was not going to happen if we said, well, we want you to work and you need to come up with what to teach. So we had a great curriculum partner through Lavinia Group, and you'll hear from Jackie as well. But in the first summer for Summer Boost of 22, we worked in New York City charter schools exclusively and had close to 100 charter schools participating across the city, served north of 15,000 students just in New York, and got double-digit gains in the pre and post-test results, which encouraged Bloomberg to make a broader investment. So in summer of 2023, we expanded to 8 cities, including Indianapolis, also San Antonio, Nashville, a number of other places across the country, again, only in charter schools. And then this year we're in 7 cities. We're not in Indianapolis any longer because the state has put millions of dollars of public money into investing in summer learning, which is really exciting to create a longer, more sustained program. But we are in the 7 other cities. And then we're also supporting a program called Summer Discovery, which is in Southeast Michigan and supported by the Balmer Group. So Steve and Connie Balmer saw the work of Summer Boost and they said, we want to do this in Michigan. So we're in Detroit and the Tri-County area around Detroit doing a similar program, again, working with partners like Lavinia Group. And Jeffrey will share a little bit about the results, but I think what's exciting is that we're starting to see momentum around public dollars going to support this, because people are realizing that, the gaps we already had, have just been exacerbated by kids being out of the classroom for as long as they were in the COVID years. And summer is really one of the key opportunities to be able to not only make up the COVID gaps, but the gaps that existed before that.
Thank you so much for giving us the big picture. And I'd love to transition over to Jackie now, who partnered with you initially and brought in that easy to use curriculum that had such success. Hi, Jackie. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
My pleasure. I'm excited to talk about your RISE Summer Learning Program and the curriculum that was used initially in Summer Boost and the success that it's had. And I'd love for you to share a little bit about what has made it such an easy to use program and so successful.
Great. Thanks, Natalia. Hi, everyone. I'm Jackie Taslim, co-president of Lavinia Group, and Lavinia Group is a K-12 curriculum and professional development organization. And we're really proud to have partnered with the folks on this call for Summer Boost and for Indie Summer Learning Labs to really make summer learning possible for so many children. And so, as Caitlin mentioned, Summer Boost schools can opt in to use the Lavinia RISE program. And that program consists of 3 key elements. 1, we provide teacher and leader professional development. 2, we provide a comprehensive 5-week curriculum for both literacy and math. And then we also provide pre and post assessments so schools can get that data and see how students progressed over the course of the summer. And so specifically with literacy, our curriculum is for students in rising 1st through 9th grade. And it's fully aligned to all the science of reading research, which we know is so important all year long, including the summer. And it includes a few key components that we think are really, really critical. So the first is all of our literacy curriculum includes book studies with really, really engaging, multicultural, rigorous texts that students read with their teachers. They read independently. They engage in lots of discussion and writing about what they've read every single day. And so that is a component across all grades. In addition, they engage in close reading. And so that's deep analysis of a single text, or rather a new text sort of every day. Again, with opportunities for discussion and writing in response to what they've read. And so that those 2 components go across all of the grades. And then in our youngest grades, we also have a systematic phonics program because we know it's really essential that students are developing those skills over the summer. And so our program includes direct, explicit, multisensory routines that students engage in throughout the summer. And then, of course, hopefully carry those over into the school years to continue that learning. And then in addition to the whole class opportunities, we also provide professional development for teachers on how to support students through that small group instruction so that they can tailor and differentiate the approach based on where students are. So those are the components of the curriculum. in addition to that curriculum, we provide pre-programmed training for all teachers and leaders to ensure they have everything they need. Sort of to Caitlin's point, we want this to be easy, turnkey, easy to implement. So everything they need to teach the curriculum. And then throughout the program, we follow up with weekly professional development opportunities so teachers can go and learn intellectual preparation methods. They can study student work with our Lavinia Group coaches and other teachers. They study data, they plan for differentiation. So that weekly touch point is a really nice sort of support system for teachers over the course of the summer. They can discuss how students are progressing and also ask questions they have about the curriculum. So making it much easier on leaders, because we know the millions of things leaders are doing during the summer, we provide that professional development support. And then finally, that third component, the assessments. We believe that the pre and post assessment is essential for understanding the growth that was made on the standards that were taught over the course of the summer. And so our assessments for rising 1st through 9th grade focus on reading comprehension and writing in response to reading. In 4th grade and above, we also include some multiple choice. And then for our youngest students, we also supplement the comprehension piece with phonics screeners to measure progress in that way. And then in addition to those assessments, we do provide tools and resources because we think it's important for teachers to measure sort of informally the progress each week. So we have trackers so they can see how students are doing and pull students for one-on-one instruction, modify their whole class teaching, or meet with students in small groups. And so those are kind of the core components. And in addition to our partnership with Summer Boost, where schools can opt in to use our curriculum, we also provide it for other districts and charters across the country, because we just really want to make sure we have this high quality, effective, engaging program in place that's really straightforward for leaders and teachers to implement.
Thank you, Jackie. I think that leads me beautifully into Jeffrey's piece of it, because the incredible amount of data collection and just assessment that took place with Lavinia's programs in the summer makes it easier for investors and supporters with public dollars also to take up and continue the work because of the impact. So with that, I'd like to welcome Jeffrey. Yeah, there we go. Hi, Jeffrey.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us. And I understand that you were leading the efforts of the assessment or the lead researcher, sorry, of the assessment for Summer Boost. Tell us about a little bit about the research methods used and also how it was organized.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So first of all, I was only just one person in a huge effort that involved a lot of good folks, including Caitlin and her group from Building Impact, including the significant support of Bloomberg Philanthropies, including an organization that did much of the heavy lifting in terms of the data collection and organizing a huge part of this effort, MGT Consulting. And so anyway, I do want to acknowledge all of their good work. So yeah, it was a massive effort involving close to 450 schools. It was over 35,000 students involved in the Summer Boost program who attended across 8 cities. We were really proud in that, attendance rates were really quite good. 75% or greater attendance rates typically we saw, which is really quite good for a summer school program. And with students attending about over 6 hours per day for 22 days, we were able to make a significant impact on the students' achievement outcomes. And so I want to tell you a little bit about that and the data that we collected. So
Oh, Jeffrey, would you unmute yourself, please?
I apologize. I don't know how that
No
happened.
worries.
Uh, okay, so at any rate, we compared students who took the NWEA or iReady assessments to similar students attending these same schools who did not benefit from Summer Boost programs. So I do want you to remember that all of these data that I will be talking about today represent a comparison between the Summer Boost students and those students who did not benefit from the program, who looked very much like the Summer Boost kids. So we looked at a number of questions. Does the program work overall in terms of achievement outcomes for kids? Are there specific students for whom it worked best? And what sort of differences across programs might have contributed to the differences that we saw? So I want to start off with the first set of outcomes regarding math, okay? And so what we found, which was relatively consistent with a lot of summer school research that we see, is that we had really strong effects for students' math outcomes. There's a pretty simple explanation for this, and that's that kids don't typically learn math skills outside of school. So when we're providing opportunities to practice math skills in school, those students do tend to pick up a lot of ground relative to comparison school students who did not participate in any formal schooling during the summer months. So that's a typical thing that we see quite often. We've converted these into some metrics that I think will be helpful to kind of contextualize these results. So in each one of the localities participating in the evaluation, we were able to calculate how much kids typically lost due to COVID-related school closures and the pandemic itself. So when we compare how much students gained in terms of their Summer Boost outcomes relative to the amount that students had typically lost in these locales due to COVID, we found that as a result of Summer Boost, kids were able to make up close to a third of the learning loss that they had experienced relative to COVID in math skills. And this was also equivalent to about 4 to 5 weeks of additional learning above and beyond what those students gained who did not participate during the summer months in the Summer Boost program. Now, again, we're always looking at spring to fall data in terms of looking at these student gains. So how much they gained while they were out of school during the summer months attending Summer Boost versus the comparison students who did not receive the Summer Boost program. So now with the theme of grade level reading, we'll go on to the outcomes for English language arts, which is shown on the next slide. And again, we found positive, significant growth for students in English language arts. The gains were not quite as strong as they were for math, but still, this was close to a quarter of the learning loss that students had experienced during related to COVID that they had recovered as a result of participating in Summer Boost, which was equivalent to about 3 to 4 additional weeks of learning. And so this is really promising news for both English language arts and for students' math outcomes. So moving on to the next slide. This gives us some ideas about for whom the program tended to work best. And typically what we saw was that all student demographic groups benefited from Summer Boost. That regardless of your race, ethnicity, regardless of your socioeconomic background, et cetera, all students benefited from Summer Boost relatively equally. The one group that did tend to stand out was English language learners who tended to benefit particularly from Summer Boost program. And so one of our hypotheses is that English language learners may not have as much time to practice academically related English outside of school when they're in their communities and in their families, where folks might speak Spanish or other languages other than English. So being in Summer Boost provided more opportunities for students from an English language learner background to practice and gain even more from the program than kids from other demographic groups. Across all the geographies participating in the program, we saw relatively consistent gains across all of these 8 cities. In terms of achievement levels, kids who started out a little bit better tended to perform a little bit better in Summer Boost, but we have to remember that these were all very low performing kids to begin with. That was part of the requirement for attending Summer Boost, is that you had to really be in need of additional learning opportunities. And so these students were at relatively low achievement levels across the board. One thing that we did find is that the kids in upper grade levels tended to perform a little bit better relative to non-participating students of the same grade level, such that this is often explained by the fact that when kids are in the higher grades, they tend to lose more ground academically. And so when we're comparing students with the benefit of Summer Boost relative to kids without any sort of summer school participation, that we see it really stand out in great relief that these students tend to be making up a lot compared to their counterparts who are losing a lot of ground over the summer without the ability to practice some of the more complex skills that kids would not necessarily be readily learning outside of school in those upper grade levels. So finally, just to wrap things up, in terms of the program, there were some characteristics of the program also that stood out in terms of advancing students' outcomes more readily. So the first component that I wanted to talk about on the next slide, please, is that a balanced approach tended to work best. And I served on an out-of-school panel for IES many years ago, and this was one of our key recommendations, that you have to balance academics and enrichment activities in order to get students engaged in the learning and in order to keep them coming back for summer school. And this was something that really showed up in our results, that those schools that integrated enrichment and typical academic instruction tended to produce the best results. Also, above that 70% attendance threshold, we saw much greater performance for students once they hit that threshold. So that 75% attendance rate was very important, and the requirement that students maintain a 70% attendance rate was also quite important. Those were the 2 key things that I think we took away. We offered schools some flexibility. Most schools opted to use the Lavinia program, and they all performed quite well with that program. And they also tended to do well whether they were first-time grantees or repeat grantees. So all in all, we saw quite consistent positive results for all students in all schools. These were some of the highlights, though, that I wanted to present. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey. I think that Mary Poppins said it best: just a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. I mean, we all know that we're wrapping up some powerful academic improvement opportunities with some engaging enrichment activities. And I think that, as a mother of 2 girls, I think we can all agree that that's definitely the way to go. Thank you so much to our panelists, Jackie, Caitlin, and Jeffrey, for giving us the review of that national scope of impact in the cities across the country. I'd like to continue now the discussion of the effectiveness of Summer Boost and programs like it. I'm excited to bring to you a couple of different perspectives now, including that of a local school leader from Baltimore, who can share how it worked on the ground for her own students. And also, I'd like to know that Summer Boost has had greater impact, acknowledging that it has had a greater impact on the older elementary students. But I'd also like to hear the perspective from the early learning community and those who are engaging or doing exceptional practices in family engagement, and hear share about their results and their impact. So, Liz, I'd like to begin with you. Hi, Liz. Thank you and welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Could you please tell us a little bit about your school in Baltimore and the student population, a little bit about your organization and where we know you've been a boost recipient for the past 2 years. What did it look like at your site and what was its impact?
Yeah, sure. So I am part of Bluebird Education Network. We're a charter operator operating 2 schools in Baltimore City. We're in our 19th year of operations for Patterson Park Public Charter School and the 3rd year of operations for Clay Hill Public Charter School. Our mission is really, I won't say the entire mission, but really our pedagogy is to really have a hands-on, disciplinary, interdisciplinary, and whole child education. And we definitely operate using a community school lens. And so that has been part of my role. And we really wrap OST into the community school effort at our schools. Our demographics at Patterson Park, at least, which I'll speak more of, is 45% Hispanic, about 40% African-American, and 15% white, 2 or more races and other races. We are about 35% English language learners and about 14% special education population, both of which populations are usually very heavily represented in our summer and after school programs. And so what we did with Boost, first of all, we were just so grateful to have the Boost funding. It kind of came at a perfect time when our district was kind of not allowing charter schools to participate in citywide funding after the pandemic. And then also another funder that we had kind of consistently kind of shifted its focus area. So we were no longer eligible there. So Boost came in and we are really grateful to have that. So we've been funded for 2 years and Clay Hill had also been funded for this past year. And I'll speak more to Patterson Park's experience. We served our rising 1st graders to rising 9th graders. So we had kids who had graduated who still came back for summer programming. And we typically always targeted the kids who are most in need. So we really did targeted interventions and invitations to our students, knowing the children who most needed the academics and maybe also needed the most kind of social and emotional supports as well. Some of our program elements in our Boost program, which we called Summer with Spark, because Spark is our mascot. Some of our program elements included an extended morning academic block. So that dosage is super important. We had a 3-hour kind of dedicated block to math and reading in the morning. We had those really strong program training for our teachers and the RISE curriculum. And we also use elements of our phonics curriculum that we use in the school so that we can maintain that consistency so kids would be familiar using that phonics curriculum in the school as well when they come back in September. As we mentioned before, engaging enrichments is super important. We had over 5 partners this summer providing really great enrichments like culinary, and we had also our teachers doing our enrichments as well. So we had a combination of both to really make it very enriching. And we had really great and engaging field trips as well. We had weekly field trips, typically on Fridays. Our district is kind of closed on Fridays. So we made our field trips on Fridays so that we really keep that attendance going and give something to the kids to look forward to every single week. We also use our school year teachers and staff in the program in the summer, which really allowed for building relationships and for consistency. And we also use youth workers, which is a city program, which engages our 14 to 21-year-olds in the community to come back and support local operations in different organizations. And the last kind of element is SEL and social emotional learning. We employed a wholeness coach who would help kind of give lessons to kids and teachers. They would guide model lessons for teachers so they could implement those. We use Freedom School's model of Harambe for our community circles every morning, which was a really joyful celebration of welcome and learning and community every morning. We also use the Second Step curriculum and restorative practices. And then just a little bit more about the RISE curriculum and why we used it. I say it's designed, prescribed, aligned, and assessed. So it's designed for that 5-week intervention for us. It's really culturally relevant to our school population, and it has really engaging texts. So we're really happy that we were able to find a curriculum that was so kind of suited for summer learning and could be assessed in that way. It's really prescribed because that fidelity is so important to Lavinia, and making sure our teachers are properly trained and properly implementing the lessons and the assessments. And also just aligned. It's aligned to the standards, it's aligned to what kids need for the next grades, and then assessed. So the pre and post tests are so important. We had a long time just really having a hard time finding assessments that would accurately and sensitively assess the skills that our kids are learning in that very short amount of time. And I think just one of the biggest impacts is just that opportunity for the funding. Boost has been very flexible. They really understand schools and operations. They make sure that they are having a lot of accountability with a lot of flexibility at the same time. And it's just a perfect kind of blend of what our school needed, and I think a lot of schools needed. In terms of data and impact, our last year's data showed a 17% point increase in students scoring proficient in ELA, and then in math we had a 21% increase, and which actually ended up being a 33 percentage point increase for students scoring basic and proficient, which was really wonderful. It was greater than the national average, so we were really excited and proud of our kids. And then this year's preliminary data also shows double-digit growth in both literacy and math, and the math is showing like 20 percentage points increase across 5 different domains. So we were really excited about that.
That's really impressive results, and I think this is what today's conversation is about, how the big bets are paying off, and that is impressive data. Thank you so much for sharing all of that, Liz. And it sounds to me like it's a really great recipe of collaboration, partnerships, engaging so many different entities and stakeholders, and assessing. And the other thing I think that we've heard throughout many of our panelists is the support and reinforcement that comes along with the efforts to really lift up the educators. And I think the professional development piece is key and kind of center at a lot of the success that we're seeing. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Kelly. Thank you, Liz. I'd like to welcome Kelly, take us out of Baltimore and into Indianapolis with the Mind Trust. Hello, Kelly. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and hello to everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I am Kelly Marshall, the Senior Vice President of Schools with the Mind Trust. The Mind Trust is a local education champion here in Indianapolis. And I know that Caitlin spoke a little about how our Indy Summer Learning Lab programming actually started, honestly, out as a response to the pandemic and how we could be of support. The components of our programming are very similar to what our other panelists have shared. We do run a 5-week program here, again, prioritizing both the academics and the enrichment. And we're really excited at the fact that although we weren't a Boost city this year, our Department of Education has really, attached themselves as well, and can be appreciative of the work that we're doing with Indy Summer Learning Labs. And we're now a state-funded program, and we're really excited about that because in addition to the 5,300 students that we were able to serve locally in Indianapolis, the state afforded us an opportunity to also work outside of Indianapolis with 4 additional regions that served about 3,500 students. And so we're, awaiting outcomes now, but we can say that in the past, since 2021, when this programming first rolled out, we have always experienced double-digit gains, with last year's gains in proficiency in both reading and math exceeding that of about 20 percentage points. When I think about, our youngest learners, kindergarten's not mandated in the state of Indiana. And so even though we're offering programming to Rising First, that often means that programming that some of our younger students are seeing could be the very first experience with instruction and academics. And what we're finding is that there's 3 key aspects to the success that we're seeing. First, absolutely, is the quality programming and curriculum that we're getting from Lavinia. The other is we've said this before, I've heard other panelists say this, is the professional development. You know, we were looking across Indiana, about 700 teachers were trained. We bring these teachers in-house and in-person training, and they are really, really provided with some key instructional strategies, not just for the curriculum, but just in teaching in general, that they can then take back out to their buildings. But I say the third aspect are the relationships that we have with our community-based orgs. In Indianapolis, what we do is there were about 52 sites that we partnered with. 36 of those sites were community-based orgs. So the same training that our licensed and certified teachers were getting, so were our site leaders. And so that instruction, I mean, that professional development that students are experiencing during those 4 to 5 hours of academics, they're able to get once that 5 weeks of programming has ended, because we've now equipped 52 sites with the ability to instruct our most, in need population. Our programming serves about 90% Black and Hispanic students, and those students they would identify at least about 87% qualify for free or reduced lunch. And so definitely a population that is in need of additional access and resources. And we're just excited that each year we've been able to reach more and more students. And then in doing so, the relationships that we've been able to establish with our school sites and our community-based orgs makes that summer work continue throughout the year. Because those same students that attend those summer sites, they also go there after school. So what we're finding is that there's a bit of data that we're not even capturing right now, because the same programming and instructional strategies are continuing throughout the school year once those students go back for after school programming with those sites. So that's just a little bit about Indianapolis, but we have really, really found those 3 key elements of the quality curriculum, the training, and the relationships with those community-based orgs to be the keys to our success.
Thank you, Kelly. I think looking at it from a perspective of an organization or a city that's not doing summer boost, but is having equally huge impact with your big bet, I think is really relevant to a lot of the attendees on this webinar. I'd like to continue the conversation about early learners and ask April to join us. April Porter from waterford.org, also a longtime partner of NSLA. Hi, April. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for having me on this very important conversation.
Thank you. And I wanted to just dive in a little bit. If you could tell us a little bit about waterford.org is actually older than most of our organizations and national. Tell us a little bit about Waterford and the work that you do. And then I'd love to get into a little bit about the impact on the early learners that your team has encountered and turning that into opportunities to engage families.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a couple of slides to share as well, but this is a wonderful opportunity to build awareness about Waterford programs and to be able to talk about some of not only our programs, but we've got services too, that I'll talk a little bit more about later, and to share a little bit about the impact we're having on pre-K through 2nd grade learners and their families. So we're a national early education nonprofit with a strong focus on access and equity. We offer summer programs as well as school year programs that may be, I like to say, family guided, teacher guided, or community early learning provider guided. And so regardless of where the learning happens, we provide a dedicated coach for families or the educator to successfully implement the supplemental program for reading, math, and science. And the program is rooted in the science of reading and aligned to state standards. So it's funny, we sometimes joke here internally at Waterford that with, especially when we meet a provider or a family that's not familiar with Waterford, that with such a strong foundation, strong evidence, and strong supports for families and early learning educators, that we may just be one of the best kept secrets in some cities and zip codes for building a sturdy bridge from pre-K to K, and then certainly during those summer months our students and families prepare for the next grade level. And I guess I know we're gonna get a little into the impact, but our program is included in the What Works Clearinghouse, which of course, as many of you may know, helps us find out which interventions are backed by high quality evidence of effectiveness, and Waterford is.
Thanks, April. I'd love to shift into that exactly. What the challenges that your team has uncovered, and what is the impact that you've seen in early learners that you've been able to turn into opportunities?
Yeah, so to get a sense of the overall impact of our learning programs, and basically we have, and you'll see from the next slide, a meta-analysis of our research that was conducted. So for those of you who don't maybe find research as exciting as others, the meta-analysis is a statistical technique used in research to combine and analyze the results from multiple independent studies on a specific topic or research question. So instead of conducting a new experiment or study, a meta-analysis pulls data from existing studies to provide a more comprehensive and robust understanding of the overall effect or relationship being investigated. And so the good news is, and the takeaway from this slide that you're seeing, is the meta-analysis demonstrated for those who participated in Waterford early learning programs, they consistently outperformed their peers who did not use Waterford reading and or math programs. So Waterford's reading program, as you'll notice here, has had an average effect size of 0.47, and the math program has had an average effect size of 0.39. And additionally, this analysis was broken down by grade, resulting in meaningful effects for all grades for reading. So this scale, just like this, basically, again, the takeaway here is that the result does set Waterford apart from similar services as an evidence-based early learning program. So also, you mentioned like what are some of the maybe challenges that we've experienced, and I would say that if I had to choose, like with certainly we're nimble and flexible. I think how we offer our summer learning path, it's great that we can partner in communities to offer the program that's family guided, school guided, so teacher guided, or even community guided. So I was looking in the chat as people were introducing themselves, and we've got lots of Ys, which I have a Y background, so hi Y friends, and then lots of United Ways are on too, and I've got a United Way background, so hi United Way friends. But like that flexibility is critical and helps with our mission of access to quality early learning programs. But that means implementation looks very different depending on funding. So for example, we might have funding in one city that's for families and providers, and in another city, funding might just be for families. So we're proud of that flexibility and proud of the opportunity to partner with folks like NSLA and the Campaign for Grade Level Reading to keep finding just really creative ways to implement programming, knowing that it is going to look different from state to state or from zip code to zip code.
April, thank you for that. And I think as a parent, I'd love to hear a little bit more about family engagement and what Waterford has been able to accomplish by bringing in more support, more family support to lift up the efforts in your curriculum.
Gosh, yeah, that's a really great question, Natalia. I think I would say since I joined Waterford and learning more and more about the organization, that we really are, sometimes folks like talk the talk, but I really do think Waterford walks the walk when it comes to family engagement. So every family or even educator gets a coach. Coaching services are available in English or Spanish. And actually we can, for families especially, we can provide additional languages through the interpreting services that are available. So families get access to personalized progress data, digital books, resources, and like I said, in English and Spanish to incorporate at in-home learning. Or I often say to promote a home learning culture, right? So for us, again, as I was saying before, there's sort of these different ways we implement in different locations, depending on whether it's public or private funding. But we do, for Waterford Upstart, for our pre-Ks going into K, we offer those services thanks to our generous funders at no cost to families. So I think that just goes back to equitable, our commitment, Waterford's commitment to equitable access. And just, I think, we truly believe that a child's parent or caregiver really is their first and best teacher.
I love it. I think that's a shared commitment that everybody on this call has to our young people. I'd love to welcome all the panelists back on screen and unpack a little bit more to drive us home here. And I'd love to leave everybody with, what is your number one tip for local organizations and even for funders who want to launch a similar model of success in their backyard? And I'll just throw it to Jackie. Kick us off.
Thanks, Natalia. I think my number one tip is, don't reinvent the wheel and create something from scratch, right? We have data that shows what works. And so take one of those programs and you can still make it your own, but start with something out there that already works and where you can get the support to implement it effectively.
I love that. I love that. And I think stacking and leaning on to what partners are doing, and they're doing it well, definitely is a recipe for success. Thanks, Jackie. Kelly?
I think the main thing is tell the truth about the data. I think getting the information out to the community, because, they're the students, that's where the students are. Our parents often get a lot of information thrown at them, and usually when data isn't great, it isn't always shared. And I think the success, at least from what we saw in Indianapolis, is we were extremely intentional about telling, the city where we were, and then, providing an opportunity to improve. But the key, I think, is tell the data. Like to Jackie's point, we have the information, so let's get it out there and then provide the community with options of support.
Love that. Thank you. Caitlin?
I think being creative about thinking about where kids spend summer is really important. We've seen a lot of success in both Indy and less in Boost because it's in charter schools. But I think, there are schools or districts that will just say, we can't be open in the summer, or we've got to redo the air conditioning and we've got to do this and that. But you probably have a lot of places like your Parks and Recs departments and your YMCAs and your Boys and Girls Clubs that have been doing summer programming for ages. And you can actually push in on the, high quality teachers, get some really, really great academic work done in the morning, and keep all of the great extracurricular stuff that gets kids to show up. It's a safe place for kids to be in the summer. It provides a full day opportunity for families. And that way it's not summer school competing with summer fun. It's sort of all happening in the same place. And, giving teachers the opportunity to work in a Boys and Girls Club in the summer or at the Parks and Rec department, it's actually really fun and exciting. So I think being creative about thinking about where kids are physically located to get this high quality summer academic treatment is really important.
Let me build on that, because I can't agree more. We at NSLA host about a dozen or so professional learning communities. They're free to join. I'll drop the link in the chat. And these are different groups that are coming into this space with a different focus. Like Caitlin just mentioned, we have a whole group of librarians around the country who are really looking for ways to engage and support summer learning activities in local communities all over the country. The same, we've got affordable housing. Emily Samos here with us today is our field expert and facilitator for the professional learning community for affordable housing. And same thing goes for camps and all the other unlikely kind of partnerships you can think about. Thank you so much for that, Caitlin. Jeffrey, over to you.
Well, so much good advice. I think I would start with a similar piece of advice that I've heard. I think Jackie mentioned that start with a high quality evidence-based a program or a way to attack summer learning. I think that we have a couple of great examples, at least on the call today with Lavinia and Waterford. But as Jackie said, don't necessarily reinvent the wheel. There are good options out there to launch successful summer school programs. And so use good quality evidence, choose programs that have a positive track record of success. And that would be my first most important recommendation. But then the second one is do things to make kids come back and make sure that they reliably attend, because during summer it can be chaotic. There are lots of things going on. Families want to take vacations. They want to, spend time with their kids. So to do things strategic, like for instance, offer full day summer school programs such that it offers parents an opportunity to have their kids attend a full day while they're at work or doing other things they need to do during the summer is definitely one great idea. But also the other finding that I outlined in our research, and that is getting a nice blend of enrichment and engaging academics can also cause kids to keep coming back because they enjoy it and they feel more engaged in the learning. And also to hold schools accountable. This was something that was very strong in Summer Boost, that all grantees had to maintain a high attendance rate, and they did, and they were successful at that. So hold them accountable too.
I love that. And as a wife of an educator, my husband is a teacher. I would also say not only make it fun so that the kiddos are coming back, but also make it engaging and great so that your staff is coming back and they want to come back every day to teach and continue to raise the bar. Thank you so much, Jeffrey. Liz, over to you for your number one tip.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with all of those. I think, definitely making sure that we're listening to the different stakeholders in all of this. And I think my tip would be, in terms of engagement with funders, is to really not be afraid of asking funders for what you need and for educating funders about the kind of current landscape that's happening, right? So for instance, for us, the city was giving a really high pay for teachers in terms of hourly wage. And we just couldn't do it with the current funding we were getting. So we needed to tell and talk to the funders about that so that they could start, understanding of why we were asking for so much money in the salaries line, right, of our budgets. But other things too, just like that, like Jeffrey said, like making sure that funders know that kids want fun in the summer, right? And parents need childcare in the summer, that maybe our priorities might be competing, right? We want the kids to succeed and learn and grow, and not that they're necessarily competing, but parents primarily want something fun and safe and growth oriented for their kids in the summer. So how can we make that happen together? So I think, listening to the stakeholders and not being afraid to really ask for what you want and educate the funders in terms of summer learning, I think is something that I think most funders really want to hear from what's happening on the ground level, and are open to hearing that, so it can help, give them a better pathway in their strategy.
Thank you, Liz. That's so insightful. April, do you want to chime in with a number one tip?
Of course, I would love to chime in. Thank you. And so as I was sitting here thinking about it, I was like, I really think for me, it would be like a sort of two-pronged approach of depth and breadth. So when it comes to depth, thinking about how do we shift our perspective. And I was often, you hear kindergarten ready, kindergarten, because we're preschool, with Waterford Upstart. Talk about kindergarten readiness. I often feel like the conversations look like all the responsibilities on a family to be ready, or even on the child to be ready. And I just think, how do we, whether as organizations implementing, studying, funding, how do we really shift our perspective and go deeper on what does it mean for districts to be ready? What does it mean for community-based organizations to be ready? Systems, policies. So I think just that deeper reflection on what it means to be ready for everybody. And then my other thing is just, I think, access and equity, because what we very much know is that access is not equitable across our country. So how do we really, I think as someone earlier said, that we really make sure that all of our young learners have equitable access to quality learning.
Thanks, April. And sorry, Emily, I was going
I
to
just
add
have
on
to
the
jump in
question.
because April is literally speaking GLR's language. I mean, literally everything she just said is what we've been talking about with the whole not saying readiness, because it does seem to be somehow the responsibility of the family or the child when it really is. I love what you said, like how are the districts ready? How are the CBOs ready? And the other thing I just wanted to, and I didn't mean to jump in, Natalia, but it's like really, I keep hearing the voice in my head. I wanted to ask, I know Liz also has done some kindergarten readiness, kindergarten success work, but I want to ask April, Kelly, and Liz, because we're talking about how important it is to keep the kids coming back. And you guys are, I mean, those are like 4, 5, 6-year-olds, right? How do you keep them coming back in the summer? How do you balance out, like, really, what does it look like to balance the academics and enrichment, to make sure there's fun and there's learning? What does that look like for those pre-K through second graders? Kelly, I'm looking at you first.
I'm going to go back though, in addition to the just having enjoyable extracurricular activities, I'm going to go back to the training though for those adults that are in front of the kids, because it's about the relationships. And so when kids go home and they're happy about the experience that they've had, we have to think about what made that experience, enjoyable for them. And so the emphasis that's placed on teaching that loving and nurturing, delivery, we found has really been beneficial, not just with the adults that are delivering the instruction, but the training that is offered and extended to the site leaders, to the assistants that are in the classroom, mirrors that of what the teachers are receiving. And so when you've got the quality extracurricular, you've got the quality academic programming, but you're having it being delivered in such a way that you're building a relationship with kids, the kids are going home and saying, okay, I had a good time. And the parents are feeling that trust in sending them back that next year, in communicating with their neighbors and their relatives about this great place, to send your students for the summer.
Oh my God, I love that. Liz, what would you say?
Yeah, that's definitely, I think, included in my answer. I think part of our kindergarten success programs have been really focused on just targeting. So we kind of target those kids who, on at least assessments, are coming up a little bit behind and maybe need that extra push. And so we really kind of can focus on the kind of skills that they might need. I think also making it place-based. So we actually hold the camp in the kindergarten classroom. So we know that kids, really are concrete thinkers. So when they can see the classroom that they're going to be in, when they can experience success there and really get to know the people and the place and everything around them, the peers, that's really going to be helpful to give them that extra dosage before they get to kindergarten. And I think just also that family engagement and relationships. These are our family's babies. This is the first time for many of them that they are leaving them for 7 to 8 hours a day. So really building those relationships with families to let them know that this is a place that they can be safe, and that their child will be safe, and that they can trust the teachers, get to know the teachers and the staff, and just like everybody, right? Even like the front office staff, right? That is so important, so that everyone the whole building can be trusted with their babies. I think we worked with the Ready at 5 curriculum, and we did learning parties. So we actually were doing some steps to build the capacity of families to help their children, do the learning and have their kids be able to practice those skills with their parents as well. So I think, that relationship and trust and just that really positive association is so important. And also just make it fun, just make sure there's lots and lots of play, and make sure there's lots of different enrichments and opportunities for kids to be successful. And we also know when we give kids what they need, they are more likely to come back, right? So if we understand that we're meeting them where they're at and we're not making things too high or too low, if we're really meeting them where they are, they're going to feel more comfortable and want to come back to that safe, secure place.
Love it. And I know, April, you have plenty to build on there. Family engagement.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. As Kelly was talking and about that relationship with, with the educators and the teachers, I was also like, I was like, yes, yes, but also that relationship with our families, right? It's like when you like, so for example, like if I were to go visit someone doing Waterford in a place-based location, again, whether that's a YMCA, a community center, a Boys and Girls Club, like our families welcome. Do we when they walk in, does it feel like an environment that I do feel like I'm safely leaving my 4-year-old here and it feels comfortable? So I think a lot of it comes back to relationships, and not only relationships with those educators, but relationships with our families and caregivers. And really, again, that's what I meant by earlier of like, do we really respect them as their child's first teacher and care, and learner, first teacher, right? And there's ways we show that, whether before we even say a word. So I think that family engagement piece is just really, really critical in the relationship building.
April, there's actually a question for you from Surinder in the Q&A, and she asks, so based on that experience that you have, what is the single most powerful message that engages the parents to focus on their child's education? Do you have that in top of mind? What is the one thing that they need to hear to get them engaged?
I wish that sounds like a little bit of a magic wand. Like, I don't know if I have the single, wait, I'd be on some book tour right now. If here's your single family engagement magic wand on it. So I don't know. I really think it goes back to just what I said. I think it's about relationship. Like it's empowering families to feel like, yes, like you can do this and you can help your child just as much as we can, and giving them the tools and resources to do that and to support what's happening. If it's place-based, give them the tools, like a supplemental program like Waterford, give them the tools to continue that home culture of learning, whether again, that's reading or math or science, or Waterford's got habits of mind, right? So even whether that's the social emotional learning piece. So I don't quite think I have the magic, or like I said, I would be off on my own book tour, but I do think relationships are a big piece of it, and really respecting our families.
Yeah. Natalia, do you want me to keep going with the questions in the Q&A, or was there something you wanted to jump in with?
No, not at this moment. I wanted to, I think, just open it up to all the panelists if there's any other things that they'd like to share as they heard their fellow panelists also talking about things from their own perspective. If there's any kind of things you'd like to go back on, but no further questions from me. Thank you.
Well, we did have, thank you to all of our awesome panelists for answering the questions, typing out responses, but some of these I think are good for the group to discuss. We didn't hear much, Jackie, about the math curriculum. So could you share just a little bit about the math curriculum that was used? This was a question from Rosaline in the Summer Boost program.
Yes, of course. So our math curriculum consists of two components. The first is a story problems component. And so this is an opportunity for students to engage in 1 to 2 grade level story problems. And they do so by solving it with a variety of strategies. And then they have a chance to engage in robust discourse with their classmates, comparing different strategies, et cetera. And so that's a really meaningful block. And we find that students really build their confidence with problem solving over the course of the summer. So at the beginning, we had students who were nervous about math and weren't enjoying it. And by the end, they're loving math. They're looking forward to it and excited to approach it in the school year. So there is the story problems block. And then there's also a math routines block, which focuses on mathematical fluency and conceptual understanding through targeted discussion-based routines. And so with both of those components, they're really predictable structures, which is nice because then what the teachers are learning over the summer and doing with students over the summer, they can continue those practices into the school year. And we found that to be really effective as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That was really helpful. And then I also just wanted to see if anybody else had a response to that question about, like, in your experience, you've all been doing this for a long time. Has there been a message that parents really respond to the most that you'd like to, I mean, we could all be on a book tour like April said, but is there something in your experience that that's resonated, that you've seen has caused like the best sort of reaction and interaction by parents? And that's okay if you don't, because like we said, we'd be making millions of dollars if we had that specific answer, right?
I think just making sure they feel heard and that they are heard.
Yeah,
I feel like our organization does a really good job of making sure that our families are part of decision-making at all levels of our school operations. And so, listening to them, what they want specifically here about, summer programming. And I think, I was just about to put it in the chat, but I'll say it, but I think, like when we think about immigrant and refugee or EL families too, maybe their perceptions of what summer learning is or what summer programs look like here in this country may be different. So just hearing, and also then educating too, and just to have that way be like a two-way conversation always.
Kelly, any thoughts from you?
I think what I've heard most from parents is just the preparedness, that, there's once their students have participated in this programming, just them feeling more equipped, to then enter that school in the fall, which then translates into some engagement. I know that that's definitely some work that we're looking to gather more, data on in terms of student engagement. But the word that came to me the minute you asked that question is multiple parents have just indicated that their student feels better prepared.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. And, I love what Liz said about having the kids in the space where they're going to be in kindergarten over the summer. Like, how much more ready can you get than being in that space and having the opportunity to learn in that space? I thought this was an interesting question, Jeffrey, for you from Molly about the comparison groups or the sort of control groups in the study. How did you control whether or not they were involved in other summer programs, or, if you can just explain a little bit how that worked.
Yeah, so for the most part, students did not participate in other summer learning opportunities. In these particular schools, they did not have alternatives, and that's why the Summer Boost initiative was so well received and was so valuable to these schools in particular. There were some schools in one state in which we had two participating cities where they did have some access to a state-funded summer school program. And in fact, we did get some information from those two sites that there were other students participating who did not participate in the Summer Boost program. And so it turned out actually that those kids fared a little bit better than comparison students in other cities, which was interesting and good, of course.
Yeah.
That all did have opportunities to learn during the summer. But I saw a great comment also in the chat about relationships are key. And I think the same thing goes for trying to keep parents engaged and communicate with parents. And as Liz said, include them as partners in terms of decision-making process. We always, in previous work I did, that was key. We had to keep in touch with the parents. We sent them postcards. We sent them reminders to please, keep sending their student back to the program to make sure that they enrolled, et cetera. So I think communication and just being in touch with parents is definitely something.
Yeah.
I don't know if you put me on a book tour, April, but
Thank you.
Can I just add to that really quickly?
Yeah.
And also, and someone said it earlier, in addition to that, like the importance of family voice, celebrations, right? And again, we were talking about that, but are we celebrating milestones? Are we cheering them on? Or, I know I was talking with one of our coaches a while back, and little Emily was stuck on her M's with letter recognition. So to have that coach call you up and say, hey, here's some ways that you can focus and really recognize some M's. And so I just thinking about what are ways to really someone earlier said, meet families where they're at. Yep. And then provide that coaching to say like, all right, again, we've got this. You don't have it alone, right? So.
Thank you.
I think it was Liz that offered learning parties. Anytime you're adding the word party to the end of a word, that might seem boring in the beginning, I think is always a good thing. As a mom, I think I might add some homework parties here in the afternoons. But always, even in our own life, right? Just celebrating the milestones.
Right.
Definitely, April.
And then both Carrie and Alan had questions about how you got feedback on the curriculum from teachers and other stakeholders. So I know Caitlin and Liz, you both answered this, but maybe Jackie, you would want to weigh in on that too. Like, what were what were you noticing? What were some of the trends?
Yeah, so in addition to what Caitlin mentioned in the chat earlier, the feedback has been very positive about the curriculum. I think one consistent piece of positive feedback is that children love the books. And so that's very, very intentional, as we want the literature to be really engaging for kids over the summer, because, you know, they might have some kids who are going off to sports camp while they're coming to school, and we want them to, you know, be excited to come to school in the morning. Hopefully they'll get some sports in the afternoon as well. But so the engaging literature is something that's really top priority for us. A couple of years ago, we got feedback that folks wanted more during the math blocks. So we doubled the number of math problems that we included, and added more math routines so that teachers had the option, depending on how quickly students were sort of getting through the work and how long the discussions were lasting. So that is feedback that we've taken. Yeah, so those are a few of the key pieces of feedback.
And I just dropped in the written part of the question, just recent survey from one of our programs. I literally have the slide deck open because we're getting it ready for one of our clients, but the survey results from the teachers who participated in the pre-program professional development, for example. So you'll see like very, very highly satisfied. As a former teacher and any other former teachers, you know that good professional development is hard to find. And so we've been really, really pleased with the feedback that we've heard from the teachers, who already are saying, like, just one point of feedback, not specific to the RISE curriculum, but we heard from one of our co-funders in one of the Boost cities that they sent out a newsletter to sort of their audience in the local community about the Summer Boost program. And they heard back from teachers who said, this got me more excited to get back in the classroom in the fall, like teaching over the summer, which is just really counterintuitive to the whole narrative of like teachers are burnt out, they don't want to be there. Like, it created this sort of fun opportunity for them in the summer that didn't feel so intense. And I think one nice thing that's tied directly to the RISE curriculum is the ability, and I answered this, to go narrow and deep. Whereas, again, any of us who've been in the classroom know that it's just like, let's just keep going, got to keep going. We got to go. We covered that last week. We got to cover this week. And to just look at those really foundational skills and go as deep as you can. I mean, I've been in classrooms watching kids talk about a story problem for 45 minutes, like one problem. And it's like, nobody's getting left behind. You know, it's like we're catching all the nuances and all of the logic, and they're all talking to each other and they're challenging each other. And it's just the stuff that, unfortunately, I mean, it's what I wish that the school year looked like, but it's just the stuff that most of us who've had to follow a pacing guide have not had the opportunity to do.
And I feel like that is like, there you go with the selling point for summer learning, when you can go narrow and deep. And by the way, we just posted our feedback poll, which I can't say enough how seriously we take your feedback. So everybody who's still here, please take a minute to complete the feedback poll. We literally we look at this data every week. So please complete that. And thank you. Anybody else have thoughts on that last question? Alan also brought up one of the seminal issues with summer learning, and I'd love to hear, especially from our local folks in Baltimore and Indianapolis, about transportation. How do you ensure that the kids who really need to get to the summer learning program are getting to the summer learning program when there's no, you know, automatic school buses like there are during the school year? Even though that's actually going away in a lot of places too, but yeah, please let us know. Transportation.
Yeah, I tried to answer that, and I'm not sure if it showed, but we try to be extremely intentional about where which schools are not offering those sites, and those are the community-based orgs that we target. So every year we'll look into see how many students are actually not attending, right? Summer learning, and that's where we'll then start marketing and recruiting for more sites to actually apply. Because here in Indianapolis, that is absolutely, you know, an issue. So we try to be extremely intentional about, in the event that there is not a school offering that site, then is there a community-based org, at least 1 to 2, that are within, you know, a certain mile radius than which we can offer that.
Yeah, for us, I think one of the benefits of having it at the school is that our parents have already kind of navigated how to get their kids to school. In Baltimore City, we don't have a bus system. So, and as a charter, we're citywide. So we're not neighborhood based at all. So we have kids from all across the city coming. So we were able to put money in our boost budget for bus passes for students, for parents, so they could actually bring their kids safely on the bus with them. We also partnered with a couple parents in our school who had transportation companies to kind of go around and collect people, and then that would also work for the school year as well. But we also, we did some work targeting the kids who had attendance issues. And those are the kids who sometimes have issues with transportation. So helping them to figure it out at a different pace in the summer is great, because then we can transfer that to the school year as well.
Awesome. I mean, thank you. I mean, it is that a seminal issue, and I think every city is going to have a different solution to that issue. And you've already talked about meeting kids and meeting families where they are. So, and then April was talking about kind of like doing the phone calls, and we also do a lot of work with parent-teacher home visits. So there's opportunities like that as well. So Alan has another question. I'm not sure I completely understand it, but he's asked, could there be opportunities for modeling built into the curriculum? For example, problems and or work for teachers to model before students tackle the cognitive lift. So maybe that's a PD question, like, can they model it with each other? So I know you've all talked a lot about, Kelly, you talked a lot about that being like one of the 3 major things. So is there modeling that happens in your PD?
I'm wondering, Alan, and I know you can't answer that, but I wonder if he's also talking about just additional modeling in throughout the instructional delivery. So then I could pass that to Jackie.
Yeah.
But I think that opportunities for practice are built into the training. So that's there. But I wonder, Jackie, if his question is more about modeling built in the actual instructional delivery.
Yeah, so like Kelly said, opportunities for both modeling and practice are built into the training. In terms of the mathematics approach, we believe in a conceptual math approach where we typically don't have direct modeling as a strategy. That being said, that is why we have those weekly professional development opportunities, because if students are really struggling and they're not accessing the problem, our coaches can help the teachers figure out how to differentiate and maybe pull a different problem. Maybe there is a way to supplement, but the way that the modeling in essence happens with our story problems is after the students have the opportunity to solve, we are then sharing multiple strategies from students who did get the problem correct. And so the students will not get one model from the teacher, but instead, in theory, they'll get 4 models from their students after they've had a chance to think about the problem. And then the next day, they can look at that chart from the day before and say, oh, I remember what Caitlin did. I'm going to try that strategy. So we're doing it in a conceptual way, but they do see those models, but they see them from their peers.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're getting to our last 4 minutes, and I want to say thank you, but I also want to give everybody 1 minute to give your sort of like, this has been such a rich conversation. So there's probably something in your brain right now that you want to make sure you say, you want to make sure you share. So before we do that, I'm going to just say a huge thank you, Natalia. You're a brilliant moderator. We can't wait to have you back. So great to have all of you, Jeffrey, Kelly, Jackie, Liz, Caitlin, and April. You have been amazing. So everybody give your 30-second, 1 minute final word, and we'll close out. No final words?
Well, okay, I'll start. I'm sorry.
Please do.
Just one quick thing. We are being sponsored. Thank you so much for the campaign for grade level reading. This has been really enjoyable. But since we're talking about reading as kind of the key outcome, I just want to make sure that everybody goes away understanding that all kids benefited from Summer Boost in terms of both reading and math. The math outcomes looked a little better, but the only reason that is because of the way that we make the comparison. We're comparing the kids in Lavinia and other programs who participated in Summer Boost and who made dramatic gains in both math and reading. It's just that their counterparts who we're comparing them to in math especially tend to lose a lot of ground during the summer months. And so it makes that comparison, that difference, even more stark. And so I just wanted to make that clear that kids benefited equally in reading and math, but when we make that comparison to the control group, that's where the math skills look a little bit better by result of the fact that the kids who are not participating are losing ground. So anyway, just wanted to make that point clear.
Thank you. Jackie?
I just wanted to say thank you so much for having us today. And if anyone is interested in learning more about the RISE program, even if you're not in a Summer Boost city, we work with schools everywhere. We'd love to share more about the details of the program and see if we can be helpful to you in this summer. So I'll add my information in the chat, but would love to speak with anyone.
And I will say we are working on, and we're hoping to be able to confirm another session with Bloomberg and with some of the other national funders as a funder to funder conversation this fall. So keep your eye out for those announcements. We'll have the chance to hear from those national funders about how the local funders, and we learned a lot from you today about how to get things started. So thank you, Natalia, for asking that question about the tip. That was really, really a really awesome conversation. And again, thank you to everybody. I'm not sure, did I cut anybody off? Anybody else have a last, like what you want to leave us with? It has been wonderful. And I'll just share really quickly the questions. The cities were selected based on, Bloomberg's where they have investments in education, and all of the information about how the schools were selected is available on the Summer Boost website, which we've shared. And please don't forget to register for the Summer Learning Summit. It's November 11th through 13th in Washington, D.C. It's going to be a great gathering. All these folks will be there. So thank you, everybody, and have a good evening and a good rest of the week. Here's our upcoming sessions too. So don't forget to register and join us. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.